So I am totally behind on my makers kits and the monthly makers kit. I used to do a live stream and I really miss doing that, but I had a hopefully genius idea. What about a mini makers? So, makers box. And this is the turtle. Now, my idea, I usually make these a bit smaller, but let's see how small we can go with these and still have something really cool. So let's see what's in the box. For me, Tatty Teddy the kit. Oh, I love these. I'm definitely going to look into this and let's see what's coming up in June. Uh Seashell fairies, yay! Oceans. Oh no, that's this Maker's Box turtles. Yes, we've got the turtle. I'm an idiot. Anyway, let's look at what is in here. This makes the big one. Let's see how small we can go. This makes a smaller one. That'll be about quarter size because of how or will it? That'll be smaller. Let's anyway. So, we have split the original wool into 4, so a quarter of the amount of fabric. Let's split. It says split this into 4 equal parts. We know me and equal. Feels about right. 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. Head, wool, neck, tail, and flippers. So, head, take portion 1, as long as you can manage, and about 6 centimeters wide. So, yeah, no more than 3, maybe even less. Wind and tuck. And felting needle, I put it beside me. Look at that bottom lip, it is so cute. So this wants to be slightly longer than it is wide. And we do have a template. So head slightly flatter on the back and pointed, so doing that. Smaller and cuter, hopefully, because everything's cute when it's smaller. Yeah, so doing the basic mathematics, if I take a quarter of the wool, this should be around half size, but I tend to felt a little bit firmer than in general for the maker's kits. It's just how I am. So then it should be a little smaller than half size of the turtle, but we'll see how it turns out. So this looks fairly well felted, the head shape already. So as I'm felting here, I'm squishing in at the end of the nose to just kind of shape that more tapered and narrow, and pushing in at the back to fatten the back out and smooth it. It's going to be a little dinky head. And this wool does felt down fairly quickly. It's been less than 10 minutes since I opened the box, let alone started felting. So just to give you an idea of times, obviously. Well, not obviously, it isn't clear to everybody, but the bigger you go, the longer it takes. Now, making big projects, lots of people love them. I just don't have the attention span for that. So, little projects, if it's half the size, it'll take like quarter of the time. Just like every stab of mine is doing more work because it's going through more of the face, basically, and there's less wool and all the things. So I love making little projects. Hopefully this is going to be super cute. It might be a disaster. Anyway, just going to pinch this some more because I am seeing that we're adding this really cute bottom lip and everything, and I do need some room to put all the details in. But so far, so good, I think. Now, right, we're supposed to use another one of the quarters that we've left aside. Take a pinch of the same stuff, about roughly the width of the head, which is roughly about the ridge. Fold it over. Telling us to use a felting mat. We know I'm not using a felting mat. So basically you're wanting, I do this with eyelids all the time, but we're making one flat smooth edge and leaving the rest wispy, so when we put this on, it'll give him a bit of an overbite, underbite. Top lip will stick out a little bit, which let's see what we're actually making. As you can see, absolutely adorable. They've even given him a little smile. He is so cute. Right, I don't know if they're going to tell us how to do this. So let's see how this is for size, because, right, that's the way up I want it. And the lip, he could maybe have a tiny bit more lip. So I'm just going to take an extra pinch and sort of fold it onto the edge. And I'm going to want to felt this bit fairly firm because it's his lip. And actually, because I've added a little extra bulk at this side seems a little bit weaker. He's going to have quite a chunky upper lip, but I'm cool with that. So I'm just adding a little bit more fibre to this end so they're of a similar thickness. And I'm trying to make sure that I'm not just felting right into the centre of this line. I want it curved, so I'm very careful for my fingers, felting at the sides of this and just gently over to make it a little more curved. If you just felt all in the same place, I'll have a kind of line down the lip. We want a nice curved lip, or I want a nice curved lip. It's your turtle, you do with them what you want. So that is for me about right. I'm going to find where the center line is, take that to his face, last chance to decide what way's the right way round. Pop the center onto the center of his nose, comes down quite low, so got a bit of a goofy chin, and then I'm going to felt just above that, because you don't want to felt the lip in, but just above to tack that into place. And then it specifically says make sure that the lip is straight. The lip is straight, and it is dorky. That is adorkable. I'm just going to turn it up slightly. They did do it with a smile in there, so I'm giving him a smile. It says straight. I'm going just slightly up. I've not read ahead. They might actually tell us how to make the smile in a different way, but I wanted to smile now. Just going to manipulate this, trying to make sure it's even. And just at the very edge, turning it up so he's got a adorable smile. And then don't felt the lip into the face, the bit that you've worked hard on, just work on smoothing out above it. And because proportionately my lip is going to be slightly bigger than their lip, it's probably going to be more beaky, but I'm sure it'll be cute. And that's pretty smooth and attached. Another pinch from portion 2. And I want to make a sausage that's about as long, the overall length just longer than the length of the head. So, and I don't want to go too crazy with this. It's easier to add than it is to take away. And this wants to be rolled up, which is a little more tricky, but there we go. And got to keep the edges wispy. That edge has got less in it. I can feel that as I've rolled it. So it was fiddly at this size to roll it up. It would be a little easier on a felting mat, but I just loosely rolled it, and then as I'm felting, I'm twisting and it'll roll up itself, sort of. It does say to make sure this sausage is solid, but I've not gone for mega solid because I feel we want to blend this in. We'll see what the instructions say next. I have an idea. Okay. So place the sausage, so it's going to wrap around the upper lip. Because mine's so much smaller, the amount of fluff that's left, I thought this would be the case, is a little too much. So I've just taken some off. So from the center of his lip, I'm doing it a little backwards here. I want to felt this up into his lip, tuck the overhang under the lip, basically. But I don't want to lose the lip definition. It still wants to look like a lip. This is so cute. And then, whoops, make sure that's fairly solid and felting up to the forehead. So it seems to finish around about where the eyes are. I have scissors up here somewhere. There we go. It's difficult to get the lengths and everything exactly right. So I'm just going to snip this here and take, it's still softly felted enough, but take some of the wispies, check that's relatively in the middle, and felt it down. It doesn't seem quite so exaggerated, quite so overhangy. So I'm just taking a smaller pinch. I think that should do the job. A little bit more. So if you're going off-piste with the directions, you're following what they're saying in the pictures, but at the same time, you do have to double check that your proportions and everything are right. So I've done this a little less firmly and a little less big, but I think it's going to be okay. Put it to the middle, and then just as we're doing a smile anyway, I'm just pulling the fibers up so everything is going in the direction of a smile. Try and get that closed and then up into a smile again. This is looking very Fraggle Rock at the moment. Now, I'm skipping ahead, but right. The glue in eyes are obviously for the large guy, but I am thinking I was going to make some eyes or go with smaller eyes that I've already got, but we're going for cute. Shall we just go with the big eyes? Are they going to be too big or adorable? I'm saying the adorable. So, we want somewhere about here for the eyes, I think. Yes, they come in just after the smile. Try and go even about there. I'm very bad at doing even with eyes. As you can see, wow, that is not even close to even, but we should be able to sort of push it. Now, they are very big, but it could end up being cute. It might end up not being cute, but it could end up being cute. Now, did I have a glue pen here? I do have a glue pen here. Let's actually glue these little lighters in. Whoops. So, pull it up a little bit, but not all the way, because it is an absolute pain to get them back in again. Little trinkle of glue underneath. Ooh, there we go. Slide it back down. Pull it up a little way. Little blublet of glue and slide it down. And there's his eyes in place. This glue pen came from a maker's kit like well over a year ago, and it's still gluey. So 4 eyelids. So I'll try and take pinches of the same size. 1, 2, 3. It won't be identical, and we're going to want really little, but enough to cover the eyes, but not to cover the face. That looks so gormless. Anyway, right. So fold it on your needle, felty. I'm seeing in this picture that the heady thing goes back a wee bit further. Oh, it's okay. I checked with the picture, and we're doing something up there anyway. So that's okay. Let's get started with these eyelids. I'm trying to put them on without hiding any of the other details that I've made, which is not so easy because mine's so much smaller. And to add to the cartoony, goofy look, it does suggest felting in around the eye to make sort of eye bags. I will do that once I've got everything in place. That one is too long and too weak, so I'm felting along the way to shorten it a little bit and to firm it up. missed the smile, which is good. Trying not to lose this little nose ridge. That eyelid was definitely not firmly felted enough. Don't hurry. So let's felt those eye bags into him, which is just carefully felting around where the eye is. And then once they're in and everything's kind of firm, that's when I start opening the eyes to the level I want. And there's some nice advice for extra detail to add a tiny, 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 tiny pinch of white. That's probably too much, but we'll see. Just into the corner of his eye here to give an impression of the whites of his eyes. Mine is the eye's probably a little bit too close to be able to really see that, but if the eyelids are a bit more open, there we go, you just get a tiny little bit. Makes it slightly more realistic. I'm going to add even more into that first eye. That is cute. Right. Next bit. So we take half a portion of shape 3 and we're going to wind it into the neck shape. Now on this, and it is absolutely cute with a super long neck, but I want to make it like, because mine's felted quite densely, I don't want to make it quite as long as that and a little bit thicker. So I'm just doing that. So roll it up into a ball, and I'm felting in this kind of direction, which will shorten the neck even more and make it really strong in that direction. And actually with necks, I prefer to firm them more when they're in situ. So I just want to check where the neck attaches. It does look like they're putting it slightly more forward than I would tend to. But I've not made a turtle before. So just fan out the fibres so he looks like he has, a rather fantastical ruff. But that'll just help. The fanned out fibres helps it bond, but also blends it in as well. I have put the neck a little further back because my head's quite small. And again, trying to smooth all this out and felting up into the neck to connect it firmly, like through the neck and into the head, to connect it firmly, but also to densen it up, make sure that neck's strong enough to hold up this head. And I'll do even more when it's attached to the body. That it looks so kind of human in the creepy way, but it's cool. It's cool. Right. So take this portion that I've used for the neck, take under half of the remaining portion of it, make it into a sheet. This is going to be the tail. Fold in half, and fold in triangle. And there we have a nice shape. So we want to leave this bottom bit unfelted and felt it so that it really does hold its shape here. Just for reference, it's been 45 minutes of actual recording time to get to this point, and this is on a small one. So literally, your felting projects, it's supposed to be a fun project that'll take a while. This is not something that you're going to like make in 2 minutes or whatever. It should be fun. Now, I should have said here to start with, for anyone who's new here, these Makers kits, I'm not giving you a tutorial because the wonderful Steffi at the Makers has created this tutorial and this kit. This is from the Makers. As far as I know, they ship everywhere in the world. This is their monthly subscription box for June, but these boxes, when they're popular, which they usually are, come out in their shop proper, usually not long after this. So keep an eye out. There probably will be a turtle box. All the wool, everything comes from the Makers. So if you want to have a go at this, pop over and support the Makers. Their wool, as you're seeing, is felting up really nicely. I've only been a couple of minutes on this tail and it's pretty good. I'm not sponsored by them. I buy these kits myself. Okay, flippers. Split the final portion into 4 parts. Oh, 4 flipper. I'm an idiot. Yes, of course they have 4 limbs. And bear in mind, this is the quarter. I've quartered the original recipe. But anyway, so 1, 2. So if you're making this properly, you'll be able to make 1 big one or 4 palm-sized ones. Each part. Start with the front flipper, flatten it. Okay, so we're making a kind of flippery shape, obviously. I am not following the directions here fully. I am going off piste, as I'm known to do. But the picture of it, it's a sort of rounded top end and then a bloop bloop at the bottom. You will hopefully see what I mean if I manage to make it. And it's a different flippers. I'm trying to see, it says they're slightly different shapes. They're slightly longer in shape for the black back flippers, but they do look very similar. So I will probably just try and make these look good, and then if 2 look more like the other, 2 look more like themselves than the other, then they'll become the front and the others will become the back or something like that. So to make the bloop bloop, I'm just felting more into this area that I want to go in a little bit and then letting it poof out naturally, and then felting a little bit more in the area where I want it to pinch a little bit more. And if you can see, my needle is now, I'm curving the needle into the shape. So as I want this to curve out, the needle goes in here, 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 here. So it follows the shape I want. Now, because I can see there's a little bit more finessing we're doing on these flippers, I'm not felting them super firm just now. I'm just gonna make soft ones and then add all the detailing on as we go. So back flippers are a little longer and skinnier than front flippers. I've just got to tidy that one up a bit more. But I wanted to go on to the next bit, which is adding some detailing in here. So I will show you on one flipper, or I'll demonstrate on one flipper, and I'm going to take these away and felt them in my own time because the camera's been on for nearly an hour now and it's getting tired. So we're making lines which I just twisted off bits of this darker green. I'm going to start where I want it in the middle, and it seems to be a line's kind of pointing this way. Which way did I say? This way. I keep going off camera. Right, so little green lines, 5 on the front flippers and 4 on the back, all pointing in this way. I'm not sure if I'll fit 5 on actually because this is quite small, but we'll do what we can. So you take off a piece, you twist it, take around the center point, attach it on the bottom where you want it to be. And because these are sort of identical top and bottom, then I don't have to think about making flippers in different directions. They will all be absolutely fine to flip over. That is not I'm an idiot, right? So I pointed that the wrong way, so you can just at this stage pull it off the wall and change it. There we go. And folding back the stragglers so it's a bit of a neater line. That's kind of cute little detailing. Yeah, I'm just going to manage 4 on each of my flippers because they are so titch. But I will do the rest off camera. I want to get ahead so I've got some more bits I can work on off camera, just firming up so I can give my poor old you camera, I can give you a bit of a rest. So the next bit I'm actually not concerned about because we're supposed to roll up all the leftovers to make a body, but my leftovers don't feel very much. Flatten out the wool, well, 10 centimetre wide sheet, and mine is about 5 centimetres. But I think I'm just going to steal a little bit extra because of my over felting. Let's see. Let's check. There's always a template on the back. So we want to, I suppose we can. It's going to be something that's at least half the size of that. That is going to work to be under the shell, as it were. So yeah, we want to get it to about 5 centimetres. I think it will be the right size. So just like you did with the head, but making a kind of oval shape, and we can add more to it if necessary. That's the good thing if we make them smaller. Many people don't, the makers kits are designed for beginners, and you potentially don't felt as firmly. But I do find I sometimes felt a little too firmly and need a little extra wool. So making them a little bit smaller gives me that. But there is plenty of wool for the normal person in the kit. And also the head was probably a bit big because I made it kind of cutesy, and building up all the extras will make it a little bit bigger. So I'm stealing a little bit extra. So let's say if you do the Pam size, you'll get 3 turtles instead of 4, just to make sure. Or you could just go even smaller, but you get 3 instead of 4. That sounds good. You'll need to add your own eyes, or you could felt little circles of black, and that works as well. Because there's only 1 set of eyes in the kit, because there's only supposed to be one turtle. So is that kind of twice the size of the head? Kind of. I'll maybe add some more off camera. I'll let you know if I do. Right, so we want a flat base and a curved top. Which is like that. And if I put that together, it's not bad because he's a baby, but I will add a little bit extra actually, just to make him not too titchy. So, right, that's half of the wool that we got, which I'd split into half again. So that was half, and then I split it into half again, and that's how much is used out of the second half, if that makes sense. I might use more if I need to, but anyway, so here is the size of my body. I will look at it, and now the instructions are wanting you to add, I'll do the head decorations later on camera, but we're just going to add the body and the tail and do the lines on the flippers and add the flippers off camera, and I will be back because the camera's overheating. Okay, so following the directions, this is where we've got to, and he is actually adorable. Naked, but adorable so far. So now we've got to shell him and do some of the final detailing, but so far, so good. I'm going to say, if you're a total beginner, one thing you could do is when you're rolling up the wool for the neck, roll up a little pipe cleaner, forgetting words now, roll up a little pipe cleaner into the center of it so it's a little easier to pose. You could even fold like pipe cleaners into the edges of his fins, and then you'd be able to pose them as well. Or you could even do pipe cleaner all the way down there, across there, and across there, and you'd have like a posable guy. But so far so good. Make sure these joins are really well felted because this is a very, very small area, so needs joins. But back to this, we've got to do a little bit of decoration. So the first thing is these little diamonds over his head, which are quite adorable and are going to be quite tiny on mine, obviously. So a very small pinch of, they're calling this ochre color. I'm going to start from here, and we're just making a diamond. It doesn't have to be perfect because there's going to be some more color on top of it, so I can tidy it up with the extra color. And I'm going to, we want 3 diamonds, so I'm just going to make all 3 just now. It's rather than go back and forwards with different parts of it. So 1 diamond, and then just behind the eye here we'll do diamond number 2. Again, it doesn't actually have to be perfect in my opinion because we can neaten it up in a minute. And diamante numero 3. This could have even been a tiny bit bigger, but it's kind of cute. I love his little one as a hat. That's probably not how it was supposed to be, but it's how it's going to be. And then some of the darker green, again, we're using this as to make a thread, so pinch. And the heat from your hand sort of felt this slightly as you're twisting it in your hand. So the more you twist it, the more sort of structural it will be already. And so just going around the outline. The other thing you could do if you find this a bit fiddly is make a diamond in the green and then put an ochre diamond on top. And then it would look pretty similar. But putting the line on top means I can sort of sharpen up my diamond shape a little bit if I've not done very good. So you just sort of colour over the edges a little bit so that it makes a better shape. Having said that, that is a terrible diamond, Pam. There we go, and felt it down so he doesn't have a lump on his head, and try and catch all these excess fibres. You can, if something's too fuzzy, they will be fuzzy because it's felted. You can sort of snip away any extras. Right, I think I want actually a little more. It's quite a thick line around his head so that you can actually see it. So I'm just adding a little bit more. Sometimes when you're felting, depending on how firmly you've felted and how firmly you're felting the extra bit that you're felting, your lines can kind of disappear into your item. So you sometimes need more than you think, but it's easier to add too little and then add some more rather than add too much and have to try and take it away. There we go, that's a little bit better. At this small size, it's kind of like exaggerating some details, else they can get lost. So this line is probably as thick as you're going to want it on the full-sized guy, but it's on the tiny guy. And go round the next ones. I'm quite excited about the next bit, which is going to be shelling him, shell him up. But let's get these done first. So a diamond, obviously, straight line, and then when you get to the point, just felt that in quite firmly so you can turn your twist of the darker green, and again felt straight line. It's wool, it's never going to be perfectly straight, but you can get pretty good. And then felting up again, felt into the point of the diamond, turn the wool, and yeah, that is terrible diamond. So we can neaten it up by pushing bits in, and I do. There we go. I've slightly lost the edge between these two, but just pushing the wool in a little bit and pulling this one out a little bit. Or I could even add a tiny bit of the lighter green because I've still got some. I'm going to say whatever size you're making this, leave yourself, when you're firming everything up, make sure you've left yourself some green to smooth over bits if there's any weird looking joins, or to add bulk to places you feel it needs it. Oh, you are quite fluffy on the head. I don't know if you can see that. He's going to need a bit of a trim, I think. But kind of cute. Won't lie, he's kind of cute. And same here. Felt into the point. Felt straight down to the next point. Felt into that point. And try and do this one slightly better. It's this bottom corner going up to the side that I'm struggling with making sharp enough. But it's not horrific. It looks like a diamond, and let's give him his haircut right now. Now, if you've not put wire in the neck, which the instructions don't tell you to, really, really, really going to have to spend a bit of time felting this. And the other thing, I read ahead, I spent about an hour and a half just firming this whole thing up to give you context. So, you know, it was a couple of hours into it, but I just put a TV show on, sat back and watched. Now, they do say he will lean forward slightly, which he does at the minute in time. He's going to get his shell on, so he won't anyway. But once you can pull the head. Oh, that's totes adorable. Pulling his head back like that. I don't know if you can see. That's normal, but pulling his head back just gives him a little more character. But he's supposed to be swimming in the sea, so they're a little more streamlined. But yes, so his shell will make him a little more flat to the surface. You can also flatten at the bottom even more, or you can push his head back to help his balance. But we don't need to do any of that at the moment because he's got to get dressed. So we have this beige wool. So like everything else, I'm going to quarter it because that's what we're using. So it's about that much. So this does mean I've got extra in case I need it, which I don't think I'm going to need all of that for his undershell. So I'm taking a pinch off, and for me this is probably going to be far too much, so I'm going to take more than a pinch off. Now, do I have a felting surface? I do. You're going to be so proud of me. A very mucky felting surface, just to make this step easier. So I want to make a sort of flattish sheet that is about the size of his underbelly. So I'm just felting the fibres together. This is a brush felting mat because it's literally just what I had sitting there. So I'll start folding the edges in. Shh, don't make that much noise. As you can see, with the smaller size, I am needing less of this beige, but it still wants to be a little bit puffy because they've got some. That's not bad, because that will shrink a little bit more. They've got some cool ideas. So I've made a disc that just about, there's templates if you're doing the full size. Obviously I'm not, so we're just going with what we've got here. When you are using a felting mat, you do have to lift it so it doesn't get stuck. This is a felting brush, so it shouldn't get stuck, but you do want to make sure it will go too fluffy, because every time I stab I'm just taking fibres down and under the brushes. So this side will probably be the good side. That's not bad. Slightly bigger than him again. It's going to shrink down. And let's read ahead. Yeah, so we're doing some cool little extras to make his underbelly look nice. Rattle, rattle, rattle. You don't want to overfelt this because they're using the lines as well to make it sort of poof up and give dimension, but I'm just trying to felt all over so that this is a smoother surface first of all, and it is holding together a little bit. That is cute. Is that the right size still? That's not bad. It can come in at the side a tiny bit. So I'm just pushing it in slightly. I really need to get a cleaner for this brush mat. And the length's pretty good, so we'll stick with that. Okay, so we're to use the ochre to make a centre line. I am absolutely loving this way of using the threads to give dimension. So if you just felt down the line again and again, what happens is the line you felted with the ochre here, ochre, whatever, the line you felted there is going to felt down, so everything at the edges will puff up. So it's a really cool way to give dimension. If you're making a creature or a person with wrinkles, it's a good way to add wrinkles. You could just use your flesh color or a slightly darker flesh color. Let me hold that down so it rattles less. I should put it on maybe a bit of felt or something so that it doesn't make so much noise. But hopefully you can see the more I'm felting this, it's sort of dimensioning. This line that I'm felting is going down into the felt, and the stuff around it is poofing up slightly. This is less important. It's only his underside, but it's still kind of cool. And we want 4 lines going across. I wonder if I'm going to manage 4 at this scale. Perhaps. I think, well, let's try just making the threads first of all, and then see what it looks like before I start stabbing the first one in and decide there's not room. So just making thread. I'm just laying them, they're a little longer, and I can cut off the excess. Oh yeah, we'll manage 4. That'll be nice. Here we go. So again, just doing exactly the same as what I did for the straight line. Down the middle, 4 across the edge. So obviously if you're using a felting mat, you want to lift this more often. Lifts pretty well off of these surfaces, but still lift it a bit. Just felting a little underneath to tidy it up, but this is going to be the part that goes onto his body, so I'm just making sure that all the fibres are tucked under, but it doesn't have to be wonderfully felted. And let's just check on what that looks like. That is kind of perfect under his body. Right, next bit, excited. Okay, we're going to use the darker green. Now, this should have been quartered, but don't really need to. We're just going to want an oval that's a little bit bigger than his undershell because it's got to cover all of his back. Like if I tried with that, it just absolutely wouldn't. So I'm going to try and make a little shape that will fit him. So what I am going to do is hold that down so it makes less noise. I'm going to start the basics of a shape, turning the edges slightly. Just going to try and get this so it's holding its shape a little bit. You could use a multi-needle tool at this point. Do I have one sitting about? That's the wrong drawer. No, I don't. But if you have a multi-needle tool sitting about, then this would go quicker because obviously every stab is multiple needles. But I'm just going to take this, which is barely holding together, and just look at how that fits, which is pretty not bad. If you can see, it's really covering him quite shell-like, so I don't want that to go any smaller. So I'm going to take a small amount more of the green and just like reinforce the edge, as it were. This is just going to make sure that the edge is thicker and it isn't going to want to, all the wispy bits, it's not going to want to sort of shrink down too much, because I think that's a pretty perfect size for my little guy. And that's the good thing with felt, is you can totally take it off your mat, you know, feel it up against, hold it up against the shape of the thing that you're making and see, is it big enough? Is it too big? Is it too small? You could even cut this or anything. So I want to get this fairly felted. As far as I can see, the edges of this are going to be poking out. So I want them to be, it's still going to have to be pliable to fit round his back, but I want them kind of pliable enough that it's going to bend round his body. So just going to put a bit of focus into the edge and not so much on the top just now. Because when his shell goes on, you want, like the lip, you want there to be a distinct edge. We don't want that all to blend into each other. I am going to lift this before it gets too stuck in there so it doesn't deform when I pick it up. Sometimes they do stick in a bit and deform, and I'm just getting that very edge, just like I did with the eyelids and the lips, just felting around the very edge so it's a little more firmed up and structured. And then I will check it against my body to see how it fits, see if I need to shorten anything, lengthen anything. So let's have a look. When I pop this on, Length is good. Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't want that to be any... Length slightly shorter, perhaps, but not much. But yeah, that's not a bad shape for him. So I'm just going to try and very carefully felt this firm without losing too much shape or too much size. And I don't need to worry too much about the center of this now, because it's going to be, it's getting extra stuck on top of it. Now I'm spending a little extra time. If you've followed me in the lives doing these makers kits before, you'll have seen I was having fun with them, which we should all be having fun with them, but I didn't felt them as firmly, and I didn't give them as good a finish as I should have done. And what happened was I had a large collection of really cute projects, but too much for my house, but they weren't well enough created that I felt I could give them away or sell them. So I'm going to try and make these little guys better, and then I will, at a very reasonable price, not my normal felting fees, but I'll put these up in my shop. So if you've watched this and you want to see, you want your own little felted guy, then you will be able to purchase it there. Obviously, these are not my design. This is from the makers kit and everything. So we'll be crediting the makers and everything too. And it's not going to be at like a massive... It won't even pay the price of the box, basically. So that's cool. But I just want to give people the option, because when I tidied out my little recording studio, I had a whole load of sculptures that were adorable, but I just didn't have room for them anymore. So I gave some away, but I got rid of some because they just weren't good enough quality. So I want to spend, not anything to do with the makers, just the speed I was making them on live streams. So I want to spend the time to make sure that I'm making good quality ones. I'll put them up to sell, and if they don't sell, then I'll have my little poor unloved rejects shelf, basically. But that's my cunning plan for the coming year. Oh, that looks pretty good. Again, just want to make sure that the edge of that shell is nice and firm, but I will work on it once the rest of the shell's on. I'm loving what we're going to do with it next. I think it's going to look really cool. So if I'm feeling this shrinking, because the centre's not so important, I can pull it up a little bit, just make it a tiny bit bigger. The centre's very soft, the edges are very firm. So just making my shell nice and structurally sound around the edges. Again, not too firm, because I still will possibly do a little bit shaping once it's on Mr. Turtle. Let's think of a name. Guys, give me a name for him. My head's saying Trevor, but I think he's cute, but also a little bit dorky. We'll work on that in a little bit too. Okay, right. Stop fiddling with this, Pam. That is a lovely disc for him. And so next stage, we have got the ochre. You don't want to use up all of this, but we're definitely not going to. But putting on a bit of excess, because we want to go into the poofiness of what this looks like. And I'm thinking as well, we sort of want to blend the edges in, so it's going to be the shell, but with the green poking out. So we're putting it on with a bit of an overlap, and I want little fuzzies from the ochre to go into the green to just kind of blend slightly. But so I've made a disc, and I'm leaving, what's that, less than a centimetre gap. Now, it's quite puffy so far. Whoops, rattle, rattle. As you can see, quite puffy. So I'm going to spend a bit of time. I don't want the makers don't want us to make this absolutely smoothly, solidly felted in, but I want to do enough so it's holding its own, so I'm happy with it. But it's still got a, you see how when I'm stabbing it just now, it's deforming its shape. That is, it still has to have that a little bit for the next stage. Look at me reading ahead like a clever person, but I'm just wanting to smooth this up and firm it out. And thinking, as it's a shell, so I want it to hump over slightly. It will more when we curve it over his back anyway, but I want a bit of a hump there. And just smoothing out this surface, because whenever you're going to put the lines into it, which you'll see similar to what we did to the bottom, those lines are kind of going to deform the shape, and we want a nice smooth shape that's been deformed, if that kind of makes sense, rather than trying to fix it from this lumpy shape. This is a lovely variegated colour, which gives sort of natural highlights and everything, which almost sort of looks like the surface of the, you know, when you're seeing underwater shots, the surface of the sea sends different lights down, you know, different ripples of lights, and it kind of looks like that a little bit. So if I can get this just a little smooth, it's going to look really awesome. But while it's still able to take some shape, whoops, I think we're kind of almost there. So this time we've got to use, oh, it's the beige wool that we put aside. We're going to make a bigger strand of this. We didn't have to put it aside because we've got tons extra, because we're going for a much smaller critter. So we want to make a kind of oval into the middle of this. You can, I'm not going to, because this we just said will potentially be for sale. You can spit on your fingers or something to help the process here with a little bit of moisture. But just rolling it, we're using the heat and the pressure from my fingers to just hold that together, tidy it up a little bit. And then we're going to put down a little oval that is kind of in the midpoint here. Not only does it not have to be perfect, it doesn't want to be perfect, because we're making a natural thing. So just pop that down, and then in the maker's picture, they've given us a lovely guide for the kind of wonky shapes you're going to want to add into it. So I'm not exactly following them, but I'm kind of following them just to make, and you could study a natural turtle. If you've got one yourself, you could always follow his markings to be able to get something that's sort of unique and personal to you, which would be absolutely cool. And then as you're putting these in, it slightly deforms the shape, the center shape that you put on. So you want each of these bits to kind of connect to the center shape and just let it do its own thing if it deforms slightly. And then we've got just onto the brown, not onto the green, you're taking lines out the way. I'm going to take them from each of the lines here and see what that looks like. I'm just putting them in just now. We're not doing enough to deform the shape much, just in case I change my mind and don't like where they're situated. Now I reckon that's far too big a gap for his shelliness. So we'll pop another one in the middle there. But I'm using these lines because that'll mean if I didn't, I would probably just put like really regular lines all around him, and we probably don't want dead regular lines. Again, it wants to be natural looking, and nature isn't very regular, which is great because I'm rubbish at regular. Now, if you love things like this, the makers who made this kit, they often do lives as well, and they explain how to do certain bits of their kits and everything as well. So you really do want to follow them to actually find out how you're supposed to do these things properly. This is just a Pam playing around with the kits, having fun with the kits, and kits. These things should be fun. So, if you've got a turtle that's in slightly different colors, or you want to do something slightly different with it, absolutely do. And that's the point. You can start these kits as a total beginner and like follow them step by step, and then just go off piste and do your own thing. So I think that is fairly irregular with the gaps in the shell. Steffi's version in the picture looks way better than mine, but yeah, let's hold this down so it's not rattling and start stabbing in these. As we stab them in, the ochre should puff out and these should go in the way, so hopefully it gives the illusion of the segmented shell. Trying to claw back a little bit of that green as well, so you can see the little rim of green, because that makes a huge difference. So I'm seeing how this is poofing. You probably want to make sure that your inside bits are like as big as your outside bits, because mine are sort of, the inside bits are poofing a little bit less obviously than the outside bits because they're smaller, but I'm sure it's going to work anyway. But yeah, don't go too small with these inside shapes. It's still working. I think it's still going to look beautiful. I'm trying to catch down the outside edge as well, because that lets everything poof up and make more shelly segments as well. Well, make sure the green and the ochre are connected, but it also adds to the dimension of everything. Actually, just a couple of weeks ago, went and saw The Little Mermaid with my friend, and this is giving me very big Little Mermaid vibes. I'm just going to go backwards and forwards over these lines a little bit to make sure that they are nicely, firmly embedded in here so that everything is the right shape. So absolutely, I should have known this, but with the smaller ones, they poof up less than the bigger ones. That's how these things work. So what you can do is just gently felt the bigger ones down slightly so it sort of matches just a teeny tiny bit, and then it doesn't look quite so crazy. But there's still a whole lot of dimension there, so it does look like the structure of a turtle's shell. But yes, anything that's standing up too much, just quickly felt over it. And we'll even it out even more so, because I think, yes, the next step is to put this on him. So the undershell, we're going to felt it down just by using the lines, which is a super clever technique to make sure that those dimensions are even more dimensionally, and that should be the same on the top. So trying to, there we go, down his belly first, and you can see how that poofs up where you've just felted down the ochre line. And this, it will be firmly attached to him, but these bits in the middle, not so much. I might go in and calm them down slightly if they're a little bit too crazy for me, but I do love the dimension this is adding. I can't wait to see him fully dressed, actually, because he is looking so cute just now. There, that is a really cute underbelly. Now, see if there's stab into the edge of the ochre coloured and the beige wool lines. You're not right, got it. So I'm just going to pull in some of these fine fuzzies. You can cut them or you can just sort of felt them under a little bit just so that's a bit neater. Right, nervous about this. We're popping his shell on and it looks pretty good. So we're going to felt it on by using these white lines here. I'm really felting a lot in each place so that this is firmly, I'm first of all checking, yes, it is actually lined up. I mean, the center is slightly off center, but that was me and I don't mind that. But yeah, just making sure that everything is super a million stabs in every place so that, because we're only felting into these white lines, that's all that's going to be holding it on. So if you don't go super crazy with it, then the shell will be removable, and I don't think he wants a removable shell. I'm felting a little bit into the outside of the ochre bit as well so that it puffs up even more. Just gonna let it naturally sort of go around his fins. Not felting too much on this dark green bit, but just enough to sort of shape it into his body where I need it to be. That is so cute. Look at that wee face. Okay, so I'm just gonna tidy him up a little bit, maybe spend half an hour more making sure the flippers are nice and flippity and his neck's nice and strong. Can he stand? He's not bad balancing, but I think I can just put his neck back slightly and curve his shell around it, and that'll look so cute. So just going to tidy him up, and then it's time for his photo shoot. And yeah, I've loved making this kit. Let me know if you have made any of the makers kits and what you think of them. And yeah, I will just tidy him up, then his photo shoot, and he will be up in my shop immediately. Why not? This is a very different thing for me. But anyway, here he is, the turtle, and I have got all of this left over. So the only thing you would need is some more eyes, and you can make another, I'd say another two, another one for sure, and have some spare. I've actually really enjoyed this. He's so cute. Okay, a quick note from me in the future. I decided to put that little turtle up on Etsy. I just was going to put him up, take some pictures so that I could share him in this video, and he immediately sold. So no turtle. But yeah, I guess it's a good idea to sell the critters when I make them. I had great fun making this little turtle, and just before I posted him out, I decided, have I got it up here? I do. I decided to make a extra tiny one using the exact, look at it, Judith, using the pretty much the exact same instructions in the kit and using all the materials in the kit, so you can go even smaller. He's not for sale, he's staying around though, but I just thought I would say that, as I mentioned quite a few times in the video that I was thinking about selling him. The big one, I wasn't sure if I should sell him, But you guys are super quick at spotting things going up on Etsy, and he vanished in no time. I didn't even have a time to get screenshots of my Etsy listing. Just thought I would jump in and let you know that.